Hey guys, tonight, historical sleep will take us where palace intrigue steams up your senses like a cauldron of forbidden perfume. Cleopatra's barge glides across the Nile with more drama than a skit at a toga party. As a lowly legionary, you'll inhale jasmine-scented politics and swallow gritty Nile dust between each scandalous promise. Expect half-rotted straw pallets, stale camel fat oil, and enough honeyed whispers to make a Roman blush. This isn't bedtime tea, it's more like seduction in a wine-soaked temple. So grab your favorite blanket, lower the candle light, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, drift with us into the romance that rattled an empire. If you think history is dry, wait until you taste the scandal. You wake before dawn, the desert air tasting faintly of baked clay and yesterday's sweat crusted into your tunic. The first gulp of brackish Nile water coats your throat like cheap, grit-infused syrup. Camel fat oil burns your nostrils as you lather it across tarnished bronze, wishing for a scented salve instead. Weeks-old bread crumbles into a dusty paste on your tongue, mingling with the sour tang of unfiltered beer. A stray wisp of incense from the palace drifts through cracks in the barracks door, teasing you with jasmine and cedar. Each inhalation brings a whisper of Cleopatra's perfume, a heady swirl of myrrh and honey that makes your pulse hitch. You lick salt and sweat from your lips, wondering if these sticky droplets are more enduring than the Queen's favour. Your nostrils flare as the scent of rotting straw seeps from the straw-packed mattress, a reminder that luxury comes with decay. Your senses rebel, yet crave more as palace life beckons just beyond the walls. Even the tang of sweat feels preferable to the scent of intrigue. You catch a whisper of scarlet oil dripped into the Queen's wine, sweet yet sticky enough to coat your teeth in temptation. The clink of your bucket echoes off sandstone walls, tainted by the faint musk of perfumed skin that lingers long after her barge has slipped away. Your gut churns as you swallow stale figs tossed from banquet leftovers, their sticky sweetness hinting at forbidden feast night rendezvous. Each breath trembles with the memory of jasmine petals floating in palace fountains, promising more than diplomacy behind those carved doors. A breeze carries the tang of sweat from gladiators practicing beyond the wall, only to be replaced by the cool, spicy scent of the Queen's silk sash. You grit your teeth against the cloying smell of fermented fish paste as a servant rushes past, hair still damp with scented oils. There's a flicker of desire in that pungent haze, an invitation to savor every perfumed detail before politics devour it. Even the acrid taste of ash from last night's torches can't erase the lingering warmth of her laughter on the Nile. Your stomach sours, but your pulse races. Clearly, Cleopatra's world is not for the faint-hearted. A legionary's breakfast never felt this dangerous or delicious. A merchant's cart rattles by, spilling crushed dates that cling to your boots in syrupy rebellion. Rats dart beneath your sandals, their fur scented with the same fishmonger's stall you refuse to approach. You nibble brittle goat cheese washed down by sour wine that tastes of fermented grapes rolling in dirt. The wind tangles with smoke from torches, infusing everything with a campfire acridity you'll never forget. Even your sword's shine updates slower than a dial-up connection during a fully booked siege. Your tongue recoils at the idea of another stale olive, yet you savor its bitterness like a lover's final kiss. The pungent musk of sweat-drenched leather armor mingles with hints of sandalwood from passing nobles. Every gnaw of flavor reminds you that in this sun-drenched land, pleasure is always tinged with grit. You choke on grit and longing, utterly aware that pleasure and pain share the same dusty road. Tasting betrayal has never been so literal or so intoxicating. A servant offers a scrap of wine-marinated lamb, its fatty richness sliding across your senses like a whispered promise. You close your eyes at the first bite, drifting until the sharp tang of acid drags you back to sunlit stone. The taste of spiced honey lingers on your palate, sweet enough to spark visions of cloistered embraces. Each breath you draw smells of intrigue and damp silk, as if the palace itself exhales desire. You swallow nervous spit, tasting your own fear as it stings against the stale aftertaste of yesterday's stew. The air hums with the odor of crushed lotus blossoms, a fragrance that nearly makes you forget your duties. Even the marshy reek of the Nile Delta can't overpower the seductive swirl of citrus and musk trailing the queen. You trade every stale crust for a single inhalation of that forbidden bouquet. Your senses reel in a symphony of scents, caught between duty and desire at every inhalation. In this haze of taste and smell, loyalty feels as fleeting as the wind over the dunes. A stray rose petal drifts past your nose, its velvety softness a stark contrast to the dust that coats your boots. The clang of a distant hammer reminds you of metal's bite, yet your mind lingers on jasmine's caress. You swallow once more, tasting the memory of embers and sacrifice on your tongue. Even the acrid tang of burnt oil from the palace lamps can't chase away the allure of unseen secrets. The lingering scent of papyrus scrolls and wet ink teases thoughts of whispered love letters. Your throat burns with salt and the promise of more forbidden feasts behind gilded doors. The heady aroma of exotic spices threads through every inhale, a siren song you can't resist. And yet, you return to polishing armor, hoping the next breath brings a taste of her whispered name. You'll need more than a cleaver appetite to digest this royal romance. You shuffle into the courtyard, just as court heralds unfurl gilded decrees with the flourish of a slave trafficker hawking wares. A hush ripples over the assembly as Cleopatra emerges, her embroidered, coal-lined eyes predatory as a cobra stalking desert mice. Antony stands just behind her, muscles loose in his linen tunic, yet taut with ambitions that twine political power with forbidden lust. Courtiers bow low, draping themselves in the shreds of favor that cling to her hem like desperate moths. A murmur sweeps the crowd as she drops a perfumed fan at Antony's feet, a gesture richer in currency than any gold bar. He bends gracefully to retrieve it, fingertips brushing silk and igniting rumors that burn brighter than palace torches. You grit your teeth, polishing helmet rivets as you eavesdrop on scandal dressed up as statecraft. A scribe whispers to his neighbor about rumored alliances sealed with midnight embraces rather than inked treaties. Your senses reel from the swirl of gossip. Here, power's fragrance is more intoxicating than any perfume. Flanked by eunuchs and counselors, Cleopatra delivers a decree in lilting Greek that loops through the audience like a siren song. Antony nods at each pronouncement as if each syllable were a lover's promise, his gaze never straying far from the queen's daring smile. Senators in Roman toga fragments hiss among themselves, the rustle of cloth betraying envy wrapped in regret. A proconsul slides a small sealed scroll to a fellow legionary, its contents rumored to command legions rather than love letters. You watch as the parchment changes hands, a hot ember of intrigue no one dares drop. A chamberlain's jeweled cuff brushes Antony's wrist. Sparks of both alliance and desire flicker in that simple contact. Courtiers jockey for position, their perfumed court robes brushing ankles in a dance of power that eclipses any feast. Cleopatra's laugh rings out, crystal clear, scattering conspiracies like feathers on a summer breeze. Every bowed head conceals ambitions more twisted than palace hallways. Survival demands sharper instincts. You catch the rustle of silk as a noble slips Antony a folded note, the seal embossed with an asp's coil hinting at venomous negotiations. Antony tucks the message into his belt, a move made half discreet, half lustful, as if reading its contents could taste sweeter than pomegranate wine. A pair of Roman ambassadors share tight-lipped smiles, calculating whether Cleopatra's favor is worth betraying their own senate. You feel your pulse quicken, more from jealousy than fear, as power and passion intertwine before your very eyes. The Queen's advisor leans close, murmuring counsel that could topple dynasties or topple robes. Context matters little. Antony strokes his chin thoughtfully, the faint sparkle of intrigue dancing in his eyes. You swallow hard, wondering if loyalty to Rome is enough to save your skin when politics taste of betrayal. A trumpeter's fanfare interrupts the whispers, heralding a parade of captives meant to showcase conquest rather than caresses. Even triumph feels hollow when the real war for hearts and crowns unfolds here among golden pillars. A diplomat from Parthia kneels, proffering jeweled tribute, while Cleopatra reclines on a cushioned dais that seems to sigh under her presence. Antony leans forward, accepting the gifts with a flourish more theatrical than triumphant, as though commanding marriage vows rather than hostages. You pretend to admire the intricate gold work while mentally drafting a resignation letter you'll never send. Courtiers exchange covert glances, each calculating whether to edge closer to power or cling to safety in the shadows. Cleopatra's fingers curl around a goblet of spiced wine, her lips brushing the rim in a gesture both regal and seductively defiant. Antony's breath catches at the sight, an open admission that politics here are steeped in desire. You swallow a sigh, tasting bitter envy as the crowd's murmur swells into a chorus of fealty. A chamber pot crash echoes behind marble columns, proof that even the highest court can't hide the stink of human need. In this palace, alliances are forged in whispers as potent and precarious as fine Damascus steel. A strategist unfurls a map of Roman provinces on a low table, tapping it with a jeweled finger as Cleopatra traces expansion lines with the grace of a clandestine lover. Antony nods, his agreement sealing alliances sweeter than any kiss. You realize that loyalties here shift as swiftly as dunes in the desert wind. A page boy scurries past, nearly colliding with you, his glossy hair shimmering with oil and a hint of earthen desire. You steady your bucket, heart pounding as if you just glimpsed forbidden trysts rather than spilled bathwater. A court poet performs odes of triumph, his words dripping with flattery that tastes as sickly as honeyed lies. Cleopatra's smile is razor-sharp, cutting through flattery with precision, reminding everyone that favor is a double-edged sword. You wonder if ambition curves through veins here as surely as blood. Even whispers here can be deadlier than legionary swords. One breath, and you could lose everything. Antony lifts his goblet in silent toast to Rome, yet his gaze flicks to the Queen with the tenderness of a scholar reading secret passages. Courtiers applaud, their hands clapping louder than hearts pounding in fear of falling out of favor. Cleopatra inclines her head, sending ripples of awe through the assembly as if gravity itself now bows to her. You swallow a gulp of wine offered by a trembling cupbearer, tasting a heady mix of triumph and trembling subservience. And with that sip, you realize being part of this court means sacrificing everything: comfort, loyalty, and sometimes your very dignity. Your gauntleted hands rub metal against metal, the cold steel of your gladius flashing against rough-woven padding. Each link of chainmail feels like 1,000 tiny, merciless kisses against your collarbone. The weight of your cuirass pins shoulders down decisively, reminding you that loyalty comes at a physical cost. Sweat beads beneath the leather straps, sticky heat seeping between rivets and flesh. Your greaves chafe against sun-baked sand, the stiff leather crackling with every step. You slide a coarse woolen cloak over your armor, its threads abrading the mail like a harsh tutor. A stray flea pricks your neck, a fleeting reminder of the world beneath the veneer of power. You adjust a sagging pauldron that rubs raw skin red beneath the polished metal. The press of armor against skin is as unforgiving as court intrigue. Comfort and safety seldom coexist here. Your fingers tremble as you tighten the helmet's cheekpiece, the cold iron brushing against your ear. The padded, arming doublet beneath your mail clings to sweat-soaked linen, protective yet oppressive. You run a calloused thumb over victory etchings on your breastplate, tracing triumphs that feel distant. The fabric of your tunic bunches beneath straps, each crease a testament to hurried donning before dawn drills. Armor plates shift with every twist, clinking in protest like quarrelsome bronze siblings. Your gauntlet snags a fold of fabric, the sudden pull sending a jolt through your wrist. The seam of your trousers rubs against your thigh, a constant friction you can neither smooth nor ignore. You twist in place, the scratch of metal and cloth lulling you into grim acceptance of discomfort. Even the simplest garments here are trials, each friction point a reminder that ease is a luxury reserved for few. A servant brushes dust from your shoulder plate, bristles whispering across dents and battle scars. You flex fingers inside the gauntlets, hearing the muted protest of steel plates clicking together. The helmet's stiff collar bites at your neck as you lower your head to inspect the palace gate. Your boots sink into muddy Nile banks, cold and persistent, tugging at your ankles like a phantom. You flex calf muscles within shin guards, feeling ridge after ridge of metal press into soil. The leather straps of your sabatons squeak as you roll forward to ease a cramp in your arch. You flex toes within layered padding, each movement a reminder of endurance over elegance. A breeze carries the bristle of palace banners scratching flagpoles, mirroring armor's rasp. Textures here tell of relentless demands, each bump and scrape forging a soldier's resilience more than any drill. You press your palm against cool marble, tracing grooves worn by centuries of courtiers. The polished stone contrasts sharply with the jagged straps biting your palm. A lone dust mote drifts through sunlight, absurd in its delicacy compared to your hulking frame. You run a gauntlet along the surface, echoing distant footsteps in hollow corridors. The chill of stone seeps through metal, reminding you no barrier is impervious. You tighten your grip on your spear shaft, wood splintering with promise under calloused hands. The grain presses against calluses, echoing endless marches across baked earth. A page boy's sleeve brushes your elbow, linen cool and foreign against battle-hardened mail. Stone, metal, wood, cloth, a tapestry of sensations shapes each moment in service. You grip the pommel of your gladius, leather frayed and familiar beneath your fingers. The sword's balance shifts with nicks along its blade, each imperfection a memory of conflict. Leather straps squeak as you fasten your scabbard, stubbornly catching on your belt. You tug free the strap, tasting dust on your tongue in the sudden close of movement. The scabbard's finish glints unevenly, worn smooth where hands have rested. You press a shield's boss against your forearm, its dome anchoring chainmail with firm insistence. The rim scratches your skin when you raise it to block the sun's glare. You lower the shield, its leather grip muffling the slap of your own heartbeat. Each piece of gear is a covenant of survival, unyielding, precise, and uncomfortably trusted with your life. You shift position, metal links settling into a rhythmic cadence as you stand sentinel. The sun-warmed iron clings to sweat, forging an odd companionship between man and armor. A bristle from your gambeson scratches at your elbow, trivial yet relentless. You flex shoulders, craving relief in the form of mocking orders echoing through marble halls. By the time the palace gates creak open, you've memorized every pinch and pressure, ready to bear them all for Cleopatra's world. Who needs a spa day when you can exfoliate with chainmail? Cleopatra's arrival at the Tiber's edge carried more consequence than any embassy dispatched from Rome. Antony's gaze locked onto her gilded pavilion, its ivory sails unfolding like a declaration of intent. Courtiers adjusted their togas in anticipation, each fold a subtle signal in a game of political chess. The chamber's marble floor reflected flickering torchlight, illuminating conspiracies in every shadow. Cleopatra braided threads of gold into her dark hair, each strand symbolizing a promise of alliance. Antony raised a goblet of spiced wine, its aroma masking the bitter undercurrents of rivalry. Whispered discussions flitted between senators and Egyptian envoys with practiced discretion. Every gesture in the audience hall concealed ambitions sharper than any blade. Letters stamped with Octavian's seal trembled in the hands of cautious scribes. In that hush of anticipation, ambition and desire entwined seamlessly across continents. Every gesture wove a silent narrative of power. Unspoken pacts held more weight than any public decree. Rumors of Egyptian grain shipments created undercurrents of hope and suspicion throughout Rome. Octavian's inner circle scribbled frantic notes, envisioning the balance of power shifting with each consignment. Coins depicting Caesar's legacy felt heavier in pockets threatened by foreign influence. Senators whispered accusations of betrayal as Cleopatra's ambassadors paraded through marble corridors. The Queen's reputation for strategic brilliance grew with each measured smile. Envoys from Cyrene presented ornate scarabs, each a symbolic pledge of military support. Cleansing the air with incense, courtiers sought calm amid mounting tension. Antony consulted maps etched with Nile tributaries, trusting the Queen's intimate knowledge of waterways. Discussions flowed like the river itself, steady, yet carrying hidden depths. In the soft glow of torchlight, alliances shimmered briefly before dissolving into whispered uncertainty. The palace hummed with cautious resolve. Every agreement offered both reassurance and the promise of upheaval. News of a preliminary naval skirmish at Actium drifted through the palace like a hesitant breeze. Strategists pored over charts detailing coastlines that Cleopatra had navigated since childhood. Antony's officers moved with deliberate precision, emboldened by Egyptian military insight. Courtiers draped silken banners to conceal anxious glances and racing hearts. Cleopatra observed each ceremonial gesture with the calm assurance of a seasoned ruler. The scent of myrrh lingered as decrees were penned and sealed in velvet pouches. Discussions weighed the merits of confronting Parthia against fortifying Nile strongholds. Marble columns bore silent witness to plans that would determine the fate of two empires. The queen's low laugh echoed softly, masking the razor's edge of her intentions. Diplomacy in this twilight hour delivered a rare cadence of solemn ritual. In the mosaic-lit halls, the rhythm of negotiation provided a gentle reassurance before inevitable conflict. Corinthian pillars glowed in the morning sun as Cleopatra prepared to host a feast of reluctant allies. Wine flowed freely alongside debates on troop deployments and naval maneuvers. Antony's commanders recorded every nuance with a diligence born of both respect and wariness. Gifts exchanged beneath frescoed ceilings carried promises of loyalty and warnings of reprisal. The gentle lap of water against stone pavilions offered a momentary lull in strategic discourse. Courtiers exchanged furtive glances at mosaics depicting pharaonic triumphs and Roman victories. Cleopatra's eyes sparkled with calculated warmth as she spoke of unity and shared destiny. Antony inclined his head, acknowledging the delicate balance he had accepted. Silence settled once more as the weight of impending decisions made even the air feel dense. Yet within that stillness lay a comforting certainty. Neither leader would face the storm alone. A soft sigh of mutual resolve passed between them, echoing the calm before a tempest. After all, what could possibly go wrong when two empire builders decided to rewrite history together? Dawn broke over the Ionian coast, bathing the fleet's slender triremes in a pale, forgiving light. Rows of trained oarsmen moved in synchronized rhythm, their coordinated effort a testament to Egyptian shipwright skill. Cleopatra's flagship drifted at the center of the formation, its elegant profile both a rallying point and a beacon of grace. Antony stood on the deck, cloak billowing softly as waves lapped at the hull with gentle persistence. Orders passed silently along ropes and railings, carrying the weight of destinies shared between two empires. Octavian's forces appeared on the horizon, dark shapes moving against the rising sun like distant omens. The early morning breeze carried the scent of salt water and charred wood, remnants of earlier skirmishes. Trumpets heralded the engagement, their call oddly soothing as it echoed across calm waters. A fragile hush settled over the armada, offering a moment of collective breath before the currents of conflict surged once more. Antony's captains exchanged solemn nods, mindful of the fragile alliance that had brought them here. Cleopatra's council observed from beneath ivory canopies, their eyes reflecting both hope and trepidation. As oars dipped into the water, the sound resembled a hushed chorus, each stroke measured and deliberate. Enemy triremes veered into position, their bronze rams gleaming with determined purpose. A subtle signal from Cleopatra initiated a wave of movement across the Egyptian line. Sails unfurled, catching the breeze in a display of disciplined power that spoke more of unity than war. The gentle creak of timbers became a low chorus underfoot, underscoring every calculated maneuver. Captain Heracles, stern-faced and unwavering, guided his vessel into a graceful arc around a Roman flank. The sea bore witness to a dance of strategy, each vessel moving in unison like pieces on an enormous marble board. Antony recalled the lullabies of his youth, comparing their soft cadence to the warped wood beneath his feet. A stray gull wheeled overhead, its cry distant and oddly comforting in the grand theatre of battle. Cannons thundered beyond the horizon, their roar softened by distance and early morning haze. Cleopatra offered a brief prayer to Isis, her voice carrying across the deck in a gentle murmur. Bronze armor clinked quietly as Egyptian marines prepared their positions, ready for any sudden boarding. The lull continued, punctuated only by the quiet commands that flowed like silk through the ranks. Lanterns, still lit in the sheltered decks, cast pools of golden light on carved benches. A messenger returned with news of Roman disarray, described in calm, factual tones. In that serene moment, every heartbeat seemed synchronized with the soothing rhythm of waves against hulls. Antony's resolve solidified as he contemplated the coming charge, trusting in the alliance he had forged. Cleopatra's steady gaze met his, a silent affirmation of shared purpose and undiminished ambition. Ramming prows glinted as crews crouched, awaiting the precise instant to surge forward. The horizon shifted as both fleets closed in, their outlines merging under a soft canopy of dawn. A hush fell again, so profound it felt as though the world itself paused to observe. Then, like a measured crescendo, oars struck water in powerful unison. A gentle mist rose from the sea, softening any harsh contours of conflict. In that fleeting moment, strategy and serenity existed in perfect balance. In the gentle pause between waves, the world seemed to hold its breath as fate hung poised. The subsequent clash was deliberate rather than desperate, each move weighted with purpose. Bronze prows crunched against timber, producing a muted percussion that echoed across the water. Marines advanced with careful steps, boots splashing in shallow pools on deck. The flutter of silk banners above suggested both pride and the fragility of human plans. From Cleopatra's vantage point, the sun glinted off her allies' standards in a quiet oath of loyalty. Arrows tracked through the haze, arching like silent messengers before embedding themselves unobtrusively. Antony extended a steady hand to a weary soldier, offering reassurance without flourish. When boarders hesitated, a glance from Cleopatra ensured they pressed forward with composed determination. And they say war lacks grace. Clearly, they never saw a synchronized naval shuffle at dawn. The sun set over Actium's waters, painting the battlefield in muted shades of defeat. Antony's fleet, once a testament to shared ambition, drifted in disarray under a bruised sky. Survivors collected themselves on battered decks, gathering the wounded and counting losses. Reports carried back to Alexandria like reluctant messengers, each word heavy with consequence. On the palace ramparts, Cleopatra awaited news, her poised calm betraying internal turmoil. Octavian's banners rose on distant hills, marking the approaching tide of imperial change. Antony disembarked amid fallen standards and the hush of reluctant resignation. The weight of his defeat settled as heavily as his ornate breastplate at his feet. In the fading light, the world receded to a fragile quiet where dignity and despair stood side by side. Courtiers arranged a formal welcome, concealing uncertainty beneath polished smiles. The Queen's advisors whispered counsel in shadowed alcoves, balancing care and caution. Scrolls bearing strategic plans lay untouched, their ink a reminder of promises unfulfilled. Antony's gaze drifted toward the Pharos lighthouse, seeking guidance in its steadfast glow. Alexandria's streets remained eerily calm, as if holding its breath before the shift of power. Even the scent of jasmine seemed subdued, its fragrance muted by tension. Octavian's heralds penetrated the city gates, heralding propaganda in measured pronouncements. Marble statues bore witness to change, their stony faces unmoved by human triumphs. Cleopatra received Antony privately, their reunion a poignant echo of former grandeur. Words passed between them in hushed tones, weighed carefully against fate's cruel ledger. Soft silk curtains trembled as the wind carried distant echoes of marching troops. Their layered garments held the faint tang of incense and costly dyes, reminders of power's allure. Each shared glance carried both history and heartbreak, the memory of empire enmeshed with personal loss. Antony's final proclamation unfolded with practiced solemnity, echoing through the palace halls. Alexandria's senators nodded in dutiful accord, though their loyalty wavered beneath the surface. Envoys from distant provinces arrived, bearing tributes and veiled warnings alike. Cleopatra listened attentively, her strategic mind already mapping the contours of survival. Night fell softly, blanketing the city in a lull that neither victors nor vanquished could penetrate. Preparations for Antony's end took place in discreet chambers, far from prying eyes. The Queen's chosen messenger delivered sealed instructions, each crease betraying its gravity. In a courtyard lit by lanterns, Antony faced his final choice with resolute tranquility. His farewell to the world remained private, a quiet act beneath the hush of history. Alexandria's moonlit canals reflected a city in mourning, its waters still and contemplative. In the soft glow of night, endings felt as natural as a pause between heartbeats, gentle yet irreversible. Cleopatra's public address followed at dawn, her voice steady, tinged with melancholy. She wove a narrative of shared destiny, framing the defeat as a passage to a new era. Octavian's triumphal entry across the Nile shimmered in the distance, his image already immortalized on minted coins. Temples offered quiet sanctuary, priests murmuring prayers for stability and favor. Alexandria's scholars recorded the events in ink, their tomes destined to outlive empires. Cleopatra surveyed her city's resilience, finding solace in its unyielding spirit. Statues of pharaohs long past stood sentinel as the queen charted her next moves. Romance and ruin had converged on these shores, leaving behind a legacy both luminous and somber. As the first light of morning warmed the palace stones, a subtle hope stirred beneath loss. History would remember this union of hearts and thrones, of ambition entwined with affection, as both cautionary tale and testament to enduring resolve. Who said epic love stories can't end with a dignified exit? Apparently, they just needed better stage lighting. Dawn light reveals faint outlines of submerged columns rising from murky waters. The hush over Taposiris Magna carries centuries of secrets beneath its gentle stillness. Bronze fragments glint softly where sand meets water, half buried in silence. Amphora shards protrude from silt, each vessel whispering tales of ancient banquets. In the shifting depths, fish nibble at algae-clad relics with delicate persistence. Broken statues lean at improbable angles, their carved faces worn by time's steady caress. Sunlight filters through shallow pools, casting dappled patterns on weathered stone. A lone lotus blossoms near a collapsed pillar, its petals unfolding in serene defiance. A gentle current stirs the water, carrying echoes of rituals long forgotten. Divers descend with measured grace, their bubbles drifting like soft exhalations. Underwater cameras capture fleeting glimpses of hieroglyphs carved in soft limestone. Each symbol emerges, as though reaching for rediscovery after millennia of slumber. Barnacles cling to once polished surfaces, rendering them as natural as any coral reef. Light refracts through surface ripples, dancing across submerged thresholds of ancient chambers. Sediment swirls gently, revealing outlines of buried doorways half guarded by sculpted lions. A diver's gloved hand brushes away silt to expose contours of a pharaonic cartouche. Faint inscriptions hint at funerary offerings and spells meant to guide souls beyond death. In those hushed moments underwater, the boundary between past and present seems to waver. Back on shore, archaeologists catalogue findings with meticulous calm under striped tents. Brushes sweep softly over papyrus fragments excavated from sun-baked soil. The air holds the subtle scent of cedar oil used in preserving fragile texts. Magnifying glasses reveal traces of red ochre used to highlight ritual scenes. Workmen pause to sip sweet spiced tea, its steam blending with the warmth of early afternoon. Scholars confer quietly over maps that chart the city's buried labyrinth of streets. Sandstorms once threatened to erase every trace, yet now settle gently, offering fresh layers of protection. The measured rhythm of cataloguing forms a tranquil cadence through each passing hour. Each uncovered artifact brings a hush of reverence, as though the earth itself yields its memories willingly. Petroglyphs on recovered temple walls depict offerings of bread and veneration around a shrine. A carved relief shows priests in folded linen garments, their gestures captured in timeless stillness. The play of light across these reliefs softens any harsh edge of their ancient rituals. Nearby, a shattered alabaster vase suggests everyday life intertwined with sacred ceremonies. Residual traces of myrrh seep from cracks, evoking processions that once wound through these halls. In the shade of a restored colonnade, benches offer quiet spots for reflection amid history's hush. Nearby mosaic fragments reveal geometric patterns softened by centuries of wear. Their faded lines speak of artisans whose names are forever lost to time's embrace. Here, the mind drifts between fragments of memory and the comforting promise of hidden chambers yet to be found. At dusk, floodlights illuminate the site in warm amber tones, casting long, placid shadows. The gentle hum of pumps recedes, allowing the quiet murmur of distant water to dominate. An overnight watch ensures each relic remains secure under silent starlit skies. Lanterns drift on canals, their glow mirrored in waters that cradle ancient ruins. Crickets chirp softly from the embankments, stitching nature's lullaby into the scene. The air cools, carrying whispers of earlier pharaohs on the breeze. Archaeologists retire to tents, their dreams surely guided by visions of sunlit temples. Tomorrow will unveil yet more secrets, as the earth continues to reveal its gentle mysteries. Even the stones here seem to hush their stories until the perfect moment arrives. At sunrise, scholars gather beneath the colonnade to study intricately carved obelisks. Each hieroglyph forms a silent verse in an ancient poem dedicated to royal power. The stone's surface shimmers under soft dawn rays, revealing subtle grooves etched centuries ago. A gentle breeze carries the faint aroma of papyrus and desert herbs across the plaza. Conservators examine chipped edges with leather-bound tools, their movements deliberate and steady. Strips of linen protect fragile surfaces, ensuring every relief remains intact. Footsteps echo on worn flagstones as curious onlookers drift among shaded lines of pillars. In the distance, the low chant of a ritual rehearsal blends with the whisper of date palms. Here, the past feels like a calm companion, its echoes softened by careful study. A small team lifts a sandstone block to reveal a hidden chamber entrance. Dust motes dance in shafts of light as hinges creak open, unveiling silent darkness. Lanterns cast warm pools of glow along narrow corridors lined with glyphic murals. Fingers trace scenes of offering processions, their gestures frozen in timeless grace. The air cools noticeably, carrying whispers of incense once burned in homage to gods. A polished bronze mirror lies half buried in sand, its surface dulled by centuries of rest. Nearby, a ceramic lamp stands intact, its spout suggesting a soft, flickering flame long extinguished. Muffled footsteps retreat to consult field notes, voices hushed in respectful awe. Each step forward feels like a measured heartbeat in the temple's slow, pulsing life. Afternoon light filters through lattice windows, illuminating layers of painted plaster. Colors once bright, saffron, lapis, crimson, now glow softly beneath protective varnish. A scholar gently brushes pigments to reveal traces of ceremonial attire on a royal figure. Corners of the room hold fragments of gilt wood, suggesting an opulent throne once stood here. Conservators document each find with quiet precision, their pens gliding across parchment. The subtle scent of cedar from storage crates mingles with the desert's dry warmth. Visiting dignitaries wander the site with measured steps, absorbing each calm tableau. A fresco depicting a Nile festival invites reflection on cyclical renewal and celebration. The line between festive ritual and sacred rite appears both distinct and seamlessly intertwined. In a sheltered courtyard, fountains murmur over mosaic floors, their rhythm gentle and constant. Water pools reflect fragments of carved reliefs overhead, creating a serene tapestry of movement. Bronze vessels stand ready at the courtyard's edge, whispering of libations once poured. Tile fragments show interlocking patterns, their geometry offering quiet symmetry. Date palms rustle in unison, their fronds tracing slow arcs against the sky. A soft hum from insects in surrounding reeds mixes with the water's soft cadence. Researchers pause to sip cool water, appreciating the oasis-like calm. In this shaded refuge, the boundary between human and nature feels pleasantly blurred. In the courtyard's hush, each beholder can almost hear the distant echoes of past laughter. As twilight approaches, oil lamps are lit along gallery walls, casting amber halos on stone. The shifting glow reveals hidden inscriptions previously unnoticed in daylight. Workmen gather tools at day's end, their routine movements unhurried and precise. Wooden scaffolding creaks softly under the weight of careful restoration. Faint strains of evening prayer drift from a nearby temple, merging past and present. Scholars record final observations by the lamp's gentle light, mindful of each discovery's significance. Lanterns are snuffed one by one, leaving only the soft chorus of crickets beyond the ruins. Under a canopy of stars, the site rests, its secrets cradled in the desert's quiet embrace. Even stones wear soft coats of mystery when night falls in the desert. At first light, the excavation tents slowly unfurl their canvas flaps. Inside, soft footfalls echo as conservators approach a newly discovered sarcophagus-shaped recess. Layers of dust brushed away reveal patterned carvings around the entrance. Soft beams of morning sun filter through mesh screens, illuminating the cold limestone. The carved reliefs depict offerings of lotus garlands and ceremonial processions. Each delicate petal motif appears almost weightless on the stone surface. Archaeologists exchange quiet murmurs over scale diagrams and reference drawings. The faint scent of drying clay mingles with desert air drifting through the canvas. In these early hours, every movement is measured, as if the site itself demands reverence. Where a shattered lid once lay, fragments have been carefully labelled and stacked. Conservators discuss the feasibility of lifting the lid using padded straps and wooden rollers. Nearby, a team records environmental readings, noting humidity and temperature variations. Soft wind chimes hung by local workers provide an unexpected harmony to the hush. A protective canopy stabilizes shifting sand around the shaft's rim. In the shade, pottery shards rest on cushioned trays, awaiting closer study. Labels written in ink rest against each artifact, a gentle testament to human order. Faint drips from a condensation line mark the cooler interior of the tomb. Scholars pore over translated texts that hint at the identity of the interred noble. Discussions focus on funerary rites and the symbolism of painted wall scenes. Each artifact seems to breathe with stories, inviting both curiosity and calm appreciation. A delicate gold amulet emerges from its resting place, its inlaid stones shimmering subtly. Conservators cradle it in padded gloves, marveling at ancient craftsmanship. The amulet's iconography suggests connections to Osiris, god of renewal. Nearby, bowls with traces of frankincense sit undisturbed on a low stone altar. Soft candlelight lends warmth to careful examinations of burned residue. A scholar notes parallels between this tomb and one documented at Saqqara centuries prior. Conversations drift to the notion of cultural continuity along the Nile's banks. Even the simplest ceramic votive holds echoes of rituals repeated through generations. Footsteps retreat to shade as midday sun climbs overhead, drawing soft murmurs of relief. In the gentle ebb of midday work, time seems to stretch, allowing both reflection and discovery. A junior archaeologist reveals a hidden niche containing painted burial masks. Brushes sweep away grains of sand, revealing pigments that once gleamed in torchlight. Hues of ochre and azure appear muted but intact, testament to enduring artistry. Discussions about pigment sources range from local clay deposits to imported minerals. Each mask's expression offers insight into ancient mortuary practices and beliefs. The steady tap of a geologist's mallet measures rock density around the chamber walls. Protective scaffolding creaks softly as lights are repositioned for optimal visibility. Tablets inscribed with funerary guides lie open on cushioned lecterns. Their hieratic script flows in calm columns, guiding the soul's journey beyond. Scholars sip cooling tea from cups, adorned with lotus motifs, savouring a moment of respite. The late afternoon breeze flutters canvas walls, carrying distant calls of waterfowl. As day transitions to evening, a harmonious calm settles over the site, blending discovery and tranquility. Soft floodlights awaken at dusk, outlining the excavation's contours in warm luminescence. Workmen secure tools under watchful lantern glow, their routine movements unhurried. A gentle chorus of insects rises from encircling reeds, completing nature's lullaby. Toward the horizon, stars become visible above the silent columns. Tents close their flaps to the chill night air, preserving the day's careful work. In this serene tableau, each relic rests under the desert's timeless vigil. Even the most ancient of stones seems to whisper, "Good night," before drifting back into history's embrace. The grand marble hall shimmered under torchlight, each flame dancing across polished columns with quiet grandeur. Silver platters brimmed with fanned peacock tongues, their iridescent sheen almost too beautiful to eat. Servants glided between guests, their trays laden with steaming dishes that promised both delight and digestive peril. The aroma of fermented fish paste wrapped around the room like an assertive embrace. Guests exchanged polite nods as the pungent scent settled into rich fabrics and feathered headdresses. Crystal goblets clinked rhythmically, punctuating the low murmur of aristocratic conversation. Painted frescoes overhead narrated tales of ancient conquests, a silent reminder of power offsetting any culinary discomfort. A hush would fall as the Pharaoh's envoy pronounced the next course, building anticipation with regal flair. Between bites, courtiers sampled honey-glazed dates, their sweetness cutting through the more challenging flavors. Porcelain bowls offered a cool respite with rosewater sorbet, its gentle chill easing the senses. The banquet's cadence measured devotion to indulgence and status, each sensory flourish a subtle assertion of authority. Meanwhile, a distant harpist strummed lullabies that hovered just above consciousness. The interplay between opulent excess and soft melody created a rhythm both luxurious and soothing. A senator dabbed fish paste from the corner of his lip, his expression betraying polite resignation. Beneath the polished veneer, gossip stirred more potent than any spice. Conversations about land grants and alliance marriages drifted beneath the table's clamour. Reflecting torches in wine-dark pools, guests saw themselves mirrored in both grandeur and the slightest of sneers. Fluted columns bore witness to laughter that was at once cordial and calculated. Mouthfuls of peacock tongues were swallowed alongside subtle power plays disguised as compliments. As the feast progressed, strategically placed platters of alabaster revealed truffles imported from distant hills. Their rare earth scent mingled with the ongoing perfume of fish paste in a curious dance. In every savory mouthful lay a lesson in hierarchy, and in each sip, a chance to weigh prestige against pleasure. Dancers in linen robes glided through the tables, offering perfumed fans to those feeling overheated. The mingled scents rose in a soft haze, blurring the edges of conscious thought. Drums beat a measured tempo in the background, coaxing hearts toward a gentle conviction. A wealthy merchant offered a theatrical bow, his smile as cold as carved ivory. Around him, patrons weighed favors owed and debts unspoken. The feast's centerpieces, ebony candelabra, cast shadows that lengthened as torches waned. In that shifting light, opulence and decay became indistinguishable partners. Plates were discreetly cleared and replaced with new canvases for richer indulgences. Final courses arrived. Sugared almonds dusted with saffron and tiny pies filled with candied figs. A hush descended as the last taste settled on hungry tongues. Each transition in flavor mirrored the unending cycles of ambition, and each new dish came with an unspoken contract. The harpist's melody softened to a lull, guiding the revelry toward repose. Servants moved quietly, slipping between pillars to extinguish torches in preparation for evening rest. The banquet hall, once roaring, slowed into a gentle murmur of contentment. Silk cushions were proffered for those reluctant to vacate their seats. The warm glow of residual embers promised comfort against the night chill. Conversation tapered into reflective whispers about tomorrow's intrigues. A final flourish of incense drifted from concealed braziers, perfuming the air one last time. Attendees departed with newfound resolve disguised as lingering satisfaction. In the corridors beyond, torchbearers guided guests toward private chambers. The lingering aroma of peacock tongues clung to brocaded robes like an unshakable promise. The banquet's closing acts sealed alliances and stoked ambitions, all beneath a veneer of genteel indulgence. Guests paused at doorways, exchanging nods that carried weightier meanings than words. Murmured plans for next season's harvest tax floated on the gentle night breeze. Against carved doorframes, figures surveyed the hall's remnants in contemplative silence. Marble floors, slick with spilt wine, held memories of revels and resolve alike. The night's final dish, chocolate-infused wine, beckoned those daring enough for one last taste. A quiet once again blanketed the hall as the last sip disappeared into attentive minds. Portraits of long-dead rulers seemed to observe both excess and restraint with equal detachment. Torches now dwindled to embers, their light casting elongated shapes along the pillars. The banquet's end whispered of tomorrow's dawn, where new strategies would replace feasting's comforts. And so the evening concluded with a breath of opulence and ambition, just enough to leave a slight aftertaste of desire. In the end, the only thing more filling than the peacock tongues was everyone's ego. Beyond the glow of dining torches lay a chamber fragrant with anticipation. Rows of alabaster mortars held crushed rose petals, ambergris shavings, and ground myrrh. Master perfumers in linen robes worked with the precision of skilled scribes. Their fingertips bore faint hues left by saffron and sandalwood blends. The air was thick with swirls of lavender and citrus, weaving gentle currents through the room. Delicate glass vials captured precious essences from distant orchards. A soft haze gathered around heated bowls where oils released their subtle notes. Apprentices inhaled reverent breaths before measuring each drop with ivory pipettes. A muted lantern cast pale light on petals that seemed to glow with hidden warmth. The hush settled into an almost reverent rhythm, broken only by soft taps of mortar on stone. In this scented sanctum, every aroma spoke of prestige, and each inhalation held a promise of refined delight. Lab assistants stirred amber resin into honeyed water with gentle, circular motions. A whisper of jasmine drifted across the marble floor. Steam rose in lazy spirals from small cauldrons set into the cool stone table. Each scent layer was blended as carefully as royal decrees were drafted. Fingers brushed petals aside to reveal hidden veins of essential oil. Glass droppers released tiny pearls of fragrance into waiting vials. The fragrance wafted outward, threading through tapestry-lined walls. A senior perfumer nodded approvingly as a new bouquet took shape. Behind him, jars of exotic spices beckoned from shadowed shelves. Vanilla beans, rare and prized, lent depth to sweeter accords. The craft unfolded like a silent ceremony, where every measure honored both tradition and the senses. Gentle breezes stirred the workshop's curtains, carrying scents into adjacent corridors. Candles burned low, their wax vessels tinged by previous blends. A chorus of hushed voices discussed ideal ratios for lingering complexity. Petals soaked overnight in rosewater released their last echoes of dew. Soft cloths dabbed beneath the nostril to cleanse the palate between trials. Dark wooden shelves displayed jeweled flacons, awaiting final seals. Each container held a story of distant markets and rare imports. Silken ribbons tied around amber vials glimmered in muted light. Apprentices catalogued each batch, mindful of texture and hue. A final stir coaxed the oils into perfect harmony before decanting. With every blend, the elite claimed ownership not only of power but of subtler luxuries. Nearby, A steady drummer marked the passing hours in soft beats. Perfume oils were brushed onto scented parchments for nightly distribution. Courtiers awaited trays of trial scents to scent their garments and chambers. A gentle clinking of glass signaled the completion of a masterful blend. Dried petals and leftover peels were carried away on woven baskets. The crushers and grinders rested, their work done until dawn's next light. The chamber's aroma mellowed into a tranquil lull, like embers fading to glow. Pale lanterns dimmed to embers as final drops were sealed in vials. The hush deepened, the scents now memory-laced threads in the night. Perfume artisans bowed to their apprentices before slipping into shadowed halls. As the workshop emptied, the lingering fragrances whispered of tomorrow's ambitions in softer tones. Vials were placed within velvet-lined chests, destined for noble estates. Candles flickered their last farewell before tapping out. The marble floor retained the faintest perfumes like gentle vagabonds. A final draught of patchouli, and rose unfurled beneath closed doors. In that fading glow, fragrance itself became a silent legacy. Even in dreams, the scent of power has an uncanny way of lingering. Moonlight filtered through lattice windows onto the courtyard's polished marble floor. Intricate reliefs carved into pillars felt cool under coordinated footfalls. Cloaks of velvet and brocade brushed against stone benches, their plush textures a deliberate contrast. Servants trailed behind whispering courtiers, carrying trays of scented oils for quick refreshment. The air held a faint chill, broken by the warmth radiating from torches sunk into iron sconces. Murmurs of intrigue echoed softly against pillar shadows, growing in confidence with each exchange. Elaborate mosaics underfoot told stories of triumphs and betrayals long past. Fingers traced hidden grooves in the marble, seeking tactile reassurance. Here, every carved surface bore witness to clashing ambitions, and each echo carried hidden meaning. Groups formed beneath archways carved with lotus motifs, their edges worn smooth by passing generations. A duke's silken cuff snagged on rough stone, betraying his practiced poise. Fine chains of gold slipped through gloved hands as lords clasped in greeting. Hushed laughter mingled with the hush of distant fountains. The courtyard's central basin reflected torchlight in slow ripples. Silk skirts whispered secrets against flagstone pathways. Eyes darted behind fans and filigreed masks, watching alliances shift. The scent of crushed herbs underfoot rose each time a footfall disturbed the pavement. Textures here spoke louder than words, and every brush of fabric hinted at untold deals. A marquise paused at a sculpted bench, its surface cool as distant marble peaks. Parchment scrolls exchanged hands with such finesse they seemed weightless. Cloaked figures leaned close, their breath barely stirring candle flames. Hidden alcoves offered shadows for more confidential exchanges. Veins of pale marble traced geometric patterns under soft feet. Delicate slippers tapped out measured rhythms across the expanse. Ironwork lanterns cast mottled patterns on proud faces. Curtains of gossamer teased glimpses of private chambers beyond. In this silent dance, every detail of stone and silk became an instrument of quiet power. A whispered vow slipped between two nobles beside an inlaid fountain. Their fingers brushed the cold rim, sending a ripple through still water. A courtier behind them adjusted a jeweled dagger at her waist. The dagger's hilt warmed against her palm, promising loyalty's edge. Marble steps rose toward a hidden gallery where maps charted distant provinces. Murmured plans for land exchanges drifted upward on the night breeze. Padded soles ascended with deliberate slowness, preserving the hush. The scent of damp stone and fallen petals mingled in the chill air. Each ascent through these corridors felt like a climb toward ever greater stakes, where silence spoke volumes. In the gallery's heart, a carved dais held a single gilded throne. Courtiers knelt briefly, their velvet skirts pooling on the cold floor. Scrolls placed at their feet bore seals of distant governors and generals. Fingers brushed embossed crests as oaths were silently renewed. Beyond the dais, tapestries fluttered in the softest of nocturnal drafts. The weight of tradition pressed gently on every bowed head. Torchlight danced across solemn faces, illuminating ambitions. Marble columns framed this ritual as though time itself had paused. In that sacred hush, every gesture carried the gravity of future empires. Courtiers rose as one, their movements precise and rehearsed. Cloaks swept the polished floor in a wave of color and intent. Metal clasps clicked shut, sealing both garments and whispered pacts. Statues of ancestors watched impassively from niches above. The courtyard fell into renewed stillness, the Knights' Council complete. In the end, even marble can't mute the sound of ambition. The courtyard's echoes fade into the soft hush of pre-dawn, where only the faint patter of distant fountains remains. Stone cools under empty archways, and lingering scents of lavender and citrus drift into slow forgetfulness. Memories of carved reliefs and whispered vows dissolve into gentle shadows, inviting a quiet mind. Let the promise of tomorrow's intrigue slip away like petals on water. If you haven't yet fallen asleep, leave a comment below so I know who stayed up longer than I have. Until the next tale stirs the sands of history, rest peacefully.